Hello, this is Jim Kaufman with Rankin Technical College. I wanted to do an update on the Lab 0102, which was kind of the first one that's part of our final project. I felt there was kind of, a few loose ends I kind of wanted to go over just to make sure that everybody, has kind of the latest of what they need to be able to successfully complete that lab. Okay. Please watch day 6 video. That's where we go ahead and create the app. You need to make sure you're in the correct directory when you do that. It's going to be very important going forward to kind of have your directory set up correctly under that final project, right? And so kind of follow that video that will go through that. And also, we went ahead and we went through doing a deployment and creating the user.js file in that. In this video, though, I'm actually going to go back through deploying that. You can deploy it at that point within the video if you want, or you can kind of wait until you're a little farther along. It's fine. It doesn't necessarily have to. I was just kind of doing it at that point. I kind of had a little bit of a hiccup there, and so I kind of wanted to go through, just kind of a little bit of a quick checklist on, making sure you got everything in order before you go ahead and do that. But the first thing is I want to touch on something that I missed on the day 6 lecture as far as an environment variable and a debug entry. So I want to do that first. Then I'm going to go through creating the homepage, which I didn't discuss yesterday at all in the day 6 video. Then I want to go ahead and revisit the cloud setup, and then go ahead and do another cloud deploy, okay, and show you that with the updated homepage and everything, okay. So let's get started on that. So first, so this was the part that I kind of missed. So first you want to create a .env file, right? And I didn't have this. Now you can use the default port. It depends on how you wrote your code. But in here, we're doing that. Get it from the environment. Get it from the environment variable, right? From the env file, if it exists. So when we start this, it should find this here, and it'll use this. If it doesn't find that, if the env doesn't exist at all, right? It's going to use port 3000. So we should see port 2024. Obviously you have to make sure that you import everything. .env, this is for that env file. The debug, that is what's used for doing these kind of different debug statements. And let me start this up. And I'm going to start this up from the final project here. And, kind of a review as we're going on here. So we got different package.json files, right? We're going to have one in our front end, and we're going to have one in kind of the root directory, which the root directory includes the routes, which we created as part of the lab video, lab 6, day 6 video. Okay, and then here we got a package.json file. And another thing is you might need to go ahead and add this as well. Okay, I don't think you had that. I don't think that we covered that yesterday. So for your start dev, you want it to be like this. Okay, so go ahead and do that. And then here we're just going to do npm run. And I'll always make sure you put run. I hate how this does this sometimes. Sorry, here, let me just see if I can get rid of that. All right. So I'm going to do npm run. And you always got to make sure you put run. Sometimes I forget to put run. I don't know. Sometimes I just do npm start dev. Nope, you got to have that run there, right? STAR start dev. Okay. And what it didn't do, it's because I removed it from the env file on purpose, because this is kind of how I had it yesterday. And so it did not print this out, right? And it's kind of helpful. So you know what port it's running on and everything, okay? If I go back in here now, and I'll go ahead and put this back the way it was. And so you want it to be debug equals app colon and the asterisk, just like that. Save that. Okay. And now, well, real quick here. So that matches app here, right? Okay. So you kind of want to do it exactly like this. Just avoid, not that you can't do it a little differently, but just to avoid confusion, do it like this. We're doing debug server here, right? And then in this case, I have to actually restart my server since I changed that kind of a file. Some things, when you're just changing some of your code, it'll kind of refresh everything for you, but you know, some things like environment variables and that, you're gonna have to restart your server. So restart it, and now we've got this app server. This thing is displaying now, okay? Server is running, so this is running on localhost since our env file had the 2024 there, right? So now we're running that there. So that should take care of that. That was something we missed yesterday. Okay, so the next thing here, first, I'm just going to go ahead for now and, well, let's kill our server. That's fine. So I went ahead and stopped the server, just hitting Control C, right? Now let's go to our front end. Okay, let's go to our front end. And we've got our index.html. And what I did was I changed this from what it was and added basically this link here, which is basically just a bootstrap, okay? A bootstrap. So this is, so you want to go ahead and go grab that if you kind of recall real quick here. I know for a couple people it's been a while, so getting started with Bootstrap, right? And then here, you know, go down to the quick start, and you want to go ahead and grab this, you know, this one here. Obviously, this might be a little different version than I have. But, you know, so you kind of want to grab this and grab this, right? Okay. If you do grab all of this, that is fine as well. If you grab all of this, but I would need to point something out. You need to make sure that you have, this is very important, okay? This is very important, and this is very important. So it's kind of maybe a little bit easier just to replace, just so you don't mess anything up. Because if you mess this up or delete this or this one, it's not going to work. You're going to have problems, okay? So maybe you can just go ahead and, this is the JavaScript part, right? And then this part is your link, right? This is the CSS. So maybe you just, probably the easiest thing to do is just grab the CSS part, replace this, then go grab the JavaScript out of the Bootstrap, from the Bootstrap site, and replace this here, okay? Or add that there, okay? But make sure you leave this there and this there, very important, okay? Now here, probably want to change this to issue tracker. Put the title right, okay? This, you can leave this or you can get rid of that. You know, obviously, I know within Chrome sometimes it complains if you don't have an icon, but you know, that's usually behind the scenes in the console part. But you can leave that for now. So that's how you want your index.html file to look, okay? Now the next one file we want to, and where we're going to really put most of our content for this lab for our HTML is this app.jsx file. Okay. Now in here, I went ahead and if you come in by default, it's going to have all of these there. But so basically what I did is I replaced, make sure you always leave this alone. Make sure that those 3 lines stay there. Very important for that to stay there, right? And very important at the end here that you have this. That's all very important that is also like that, okay? But in between there, we've got this end div tag and this begin div tag, okay? So this is where you can go in and, you know, here we got a container. So this is the begin div tag for the container, and then you have the end div tag. And here you can just go ahead and grab your code out of Bootstrap, right? So let's go look back there again. So here you just here we go, choose nav. I already had it sitting. So basically you can just go grab this nav bar, right? You can grab this nav bar. That's fine, okay? And use that. Now as far as what's in this app.jsx file, I know that we have a screenshot. That's, let me go down here. So I know we have the screenshot. It doesn't have to be, really all you need is the basics here. We're not, this assignment is not about creating a nice front end. Because we're going to kind of replace all of this eventually anyhow, okay? So this here is, you know, more than what you really need. Now, and I'll show you what I'll have here, okay? It's just something really basic, and that's all you really need here, okay? So let's go back here. So this is what I have, and let me point out the important thing of this is these href tags, and this is the API. So obviously, you know, you're going to have to get through the stuff from the stuff on the video, the lab, the day 6 video before you kind of get here, because that's where we created the APIs for user. And then also you'll have to do one. I didn't add the bug stuff. This is just the user stuff, but you're also going to have to add the bug stuff as well. Okay. Just kind of doing it the same way as you're doing this user. Okay. But this is how you want to access the API. Okay. So you'll see that, you know, like I said, make sure you're kind of pretty much done. You know, you got things working with the user.js file, at least that one. Then you can deploy out, you know, then you can work on this, or wait till you're done with the bug one as well. Then you can work on this. But, you know, I wouldn't do this at the beginning. Create the GUI here. But quick review here. You can comment these out, or you can just leave them. It doesn't matter. They're actually just not used in the app right here, okay? In this app.jsx at this point in time. You know, make sure that you don't accidentally remove any of those 3 lines. Leave that just like it is, okay? And obviously you have to make sure your structure is right, just like you do for HTML structure. You know, you start with a div, you're going to end with that same div, right? So make sure that's all in order. And then, like I said, make sure that these 4 lines are at the end right there after your end div, okay? If that's not there, it's going to break, and your UI is not going to display, right? Okay. So that's that. So let me start the server again, and we can go take a quick look, make sure that that's all running. Oh, here. And I do want to, I'm glad I caught this in time here. Whenever you make any changes to this, okay, whenever you make any changes to your index.html, any of this stack, any of this front end content, you have to rebuild this. Okay. Now, a way around this is you can test just your front end. You know how we can start the server just for our front end stuff. Okay, I don't want to confuse things, but you can do that. You can make a bunch of changes. You're not going to be able to access the API part, but you can make a bunch of changes and it'll pick up those changes. But the way we're doing this with integrating the front end with the back end, and the back end is basically in the root here, right? It's basically this, the nodes and our routes, right? This is our back end code. And for us to integrate this, we have to do this dist directory. So if you make any changes in your front end, you have to build that again, okay, before it's accessible, okay? And make sure you're in the right directory when you do that, okay? So let's go take a look at that real quick here. Let me move this up. Clear the screen here. So here you want to go to the front end, all right? So final project front end. And then here you want to do, well, you can go look. If you forget, you go to your package. Oh, that's the wrong one. See, it's going to be in the front end. I need to go to the package.json file in the front end. Yeah, you got to be really careful. It's one thing about building these Node React apps. You got to really be cognizant of where you're at and what you're doing, what folder you're in, and all of that, right? So we're in our front end folder here in the terminal. So we're going to want to execute something in this package.json file, and so we want to execute the build here. So we're going to do npm run build. I didn't change anything, but just anytime you do change anything in your front end, and you need to run this build before it's going to display, especially when you're starting it, when we have it all integrated, where you got your back end and your front end running together, right? Or you deploy it to the Google Cloud. You're going to have that dist directory, your latest changes. You're going to have to run this build for that to reflect your latest changes, right? Okay, so we did that. So we have our latest changes in our front end dist directory compiled or built, right? And then now we're back to our, back end basically. Our back end's kind of, this is kind of in our root directory, and here's our JSON file. And then in here, we're going to run start dev. So we're going to go ahead and do npm run start dev. Okay. And, see, I forget all the time myself. CD, have to go back one more because I'm in the front end. I need to get back to the final project. And so if you ever get a thing here missing the script, then and you know it exists, then you're in the wrong directory. You need to be in the final project directory. It's just easy to do. Everybody does this. Trust me, many times. But once you start learning, okay, I know I'm in the wrong directory, then you can correct it and move forward, right? So now we're back in final project, and then we're going to go and run this command again, npm run start dev. And now that earlier we fixed our file, so it's our env file in that, so we've got this log statement here. We know our server's running on this port 2024 with localhost. And so I'm just going to put that in the browser window. And then now, before, when we were just doing the stuff on, in the day 6 lab, we had all the Vite stuff there. Well, that's gone, right? That's gone. But now what you'll have is this. Obviously, there's nothing in pricing or disable. This is just the basic. You can remove this or leave that there. This here, that's just from that Bootstrap template. The nav bar from the Bootstrap that we get from the Bootstrap site. But we do have list all users, and we do have this. So we click this, and we're going to see the JSON right here. Okay, JSON format there, and this was I've got 3 users, myself and 2 of the students who are always in the live sessions, both Matthew and Hayden. So that's that, and then you're going to have to click the back arrow. So this is just there's rudimentary stuff just to kind of get things showing. So here, user 1, that's mine. User 2, and like I said, this front end doesn't need to be much of anything. Okay. As long as you got this working, and you have to do the same thing for bugs. Okay, you have to do the same thing for bugs. So maybe you got list all users here. You can change pricing to list all bugs. Okay, and just do it that way. Okay. So make sure you go back and look at the. Let me, I guess, show you this just one more time, in case you need to look at this. I'm not going to give you the code, but so what we did for our list all users. Okay. Now, hopefully, if you're at this point, you've already created all this and you've tested the stuff in Postman. You kind of followed what we did in the day 6 video, and so you understand all of this. But to list all users, we just just need to do this, right? This is going to append at the end of our URL, right? Or that's what it's basically doing, right? You don't want to have localhost in here, right? Because you could have your localhost and port here, your full path here, but then when you deploy that to the Google Cloud, that's not going to work, right? Because you're not on localhost anymore, right? So you need to use a relative path. This is a relative path using the / like this. You don't want the full path, right, with localhost or anything. You want it just like that, right? So that's how we did list all users, and then for each individual user, we passed in the 1, 2, or 3. That's where we did the :user ID, that route within the user.js file, where 1 was the first user, 2, 3, based on those IDs, right? And just to kind of look at that real quick. So user ID 1, 2, and 3. So we're calling that the first one, where we call the list of all 3. That's what we're calling. Which whenever you call this, you can't just do /list, right? You have to do, let me go back to the index. You have to use API, right? API, okay, user list. API user list. All right. Yeah, just to show you, back in our index.js, which is, in our backend code, right? This is our URL, right? So if we use this in our HTML, we have to do /API/user. Now, also when you do bug, you're going to have a bug router. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to have API bug, and then you're going to have a bug router, right? So you're doing the same thing for the bug stuff as you're doing for the user stuff. Okay, but you're going to create, instead of a user.js, you'll create a bug.js. So you're going to do things very similar. Okay. All right. So we've got through that. Let's see here. What's next? Okay. Yeah, I did want to show you real quick because I really didn't mention it. So like when you click list all users, you're going to see that up here, right? Clicking all users is going to go that / API user list, right? So if I click all users, and that's what you're going to see up here, right? Now this isn't something we kind of keep here. This is just something we're going to have this like this for now, right? And then when you hit, you're going to have to click the back arrow to go back. And the same thing here with user one. It's going to put your API like that as well. Okay. So, all right, just wanted to point that out. Okay, did want to just a quick review here on getting the using the coupon retrieval link to get your Google Cloud credits. The two students that were in my live course, everything worked fine for them. They had that. They got that. They installed their Google SDK and also Postman, so that was all working for them. And also were successful in deploying. We did an early deployment. You can do that early if you'd like to do that early deployment to Google Cloud. That's fine. Or if you kind of want to wait till a little bit later, that's fine. We do want to kind of throughout this course, we want to make sure that we're kind of constantly deploying out there to Google Cloud because the fall semester, I think it was only like one or two students were able to kind of actually get it to work because a lot of them kind of waited until the end and things kind of got misconfigured. So by doing it all the time, it makes things a lot easier. And if there's a problem, you can kind of investigate that at that point instead of waiting until the end and having multiple issues with the deployment, right? So you kind of want to, once you get it deployed once, you want to kind of keep on getting it, keep deploying it. So like I said, you can, in the day 6 video, I kind of did that pretty early on. If you don't want to do it then, you can wait. It is part of, let's look at the bottom of this. Deploy your finished code to gCloud. So 10 points for doing that, okay? Then, either, send me a live link either on Discord or you can email it to me either way. Email it to me or send it to me on Discord. All right. But there's 10 points for that. Okay. So you need to get that deployed. So even if you deployed it early, you need to deploy it after you get finished. And even if for some reason you don't get other things done and it's still in a working state, you're missing stuff, you still get it deployed, you're still going to get some points, right? So, all right. So back to this. So here's the coupon retrieval link. I already got it up here. It's going to go here. First name, last name, school email. So you'll have to make sure that you're using your school email for this. Go ahead and submit this. Okay. Fill it in, submit it, and you'll get another email from Google. And on that, let me show you. After that, you'll get something like this, and then it says click here to redeem. Okay. I think I'll go ahead and just click this. Click here to redeem, and so that's for redeeming your credit. It's a little different for mine than there. This was actually one of the students' emails. For me as an instructor, mine's kind of a little different. So it's hard for me to kind of walk you through because it's a little bit different for you. But you're going to click this. You're going to get here. And then, fill in your information. This is pulling it already from my account. Okay. I did want to mention one thing is you have to use your ranking email at that beginning to get your credits, right? But once you do, okay, you are going to be going to you're going to a Google Cloud Console. So you may actually, like right now, I'm logged in as a different user here, right? All right. So follow this through, and you just be cognizant of what your user is. You're going to want to associate this with a Google account. If you don't have a Google account using your Rankin email address, you don't have to create one for that. I did myself for my Rankin email address, but you don't have to do that. You can use a personal Google account that you already have. Okay. Just not to get the credits. To get the credits, you have to use the Rankin one. but to actually redeem them and use it within the Google console, you can use a personal one. You just have to remember which one you're at, which one you're using, you know, what you're using, your Google account, right? Okay. So after you do that, then go ahead and download this Google SDK. Um, and when you do download this, it's also going to have you select. I think this is part of this is also selecting which Google account you're going to use as well. But go through this. It's pretty simple. One thing you got to remember, once you do this, you'll probably have to close your, you know, if you have any Visual Studio sessions open, Visual Studio Code, close them. If you have some other command prompts for some reason, close them, open them back up. And then when you go back into Visual Studio Code, you should be able to access, be able to run the commands, the Google Cloud commands. Okay. And then also make sure you download Postman. You're going to already have this before now because you're going to have that just to really get through the code there for the lab before you ever get to actually deploying here. So go ahead and download Postman, which you'll have to sign in. You'll have to create an account for Postman. Okay. And for more information on that, you can just watch the day 6 video. All right. All right. So we'll be using the terminal to basically, you know, get things set up and deploy. We will have to do something in the console as well, the Google Cloud console. Okay. But, you know, after you do the SDK, you want to make sure that it's working in here. And like I said, if you already have Visual Studio Code, you know, open any windows, sometimes you can have multiple of them open. I know I do sometimes. So, you know, make sure they're all closed, and any command prompts or anything, close those out. Open them back up after you install the SDK. And then you can just basically do this. Let's see, G Cloud, and just do -V for version. And this will give you the you know, so you know that it actually worked, right? Actually, there's new that's available, so it's always good to do this. So let's just go ahead and do that. I'm going to do no for that for now. Oh, great. I didn't expect that. I'll go ahead and pause the video while this is doing its update. Actually, while it's doing that, I can go ahead and show you how to create a project. So first of all, you know, you want to go to console.cloud.google.com, right? And in there, you want to go ahead and, so for me, I have this user, and this is kind of the wrong one for me. I really want this one. Hopefully that's the same scenario for you. I really don't want all this though. It's that education stuff. I'm not doing anything with that. So basically, you know, come in to the console.cloud, google.com, and you should come to this welcome screen for, like in my case. So this is kind of like my base account that I use, company I have. So I actually want to use the one that I have associated, that I already associated with the credits and that. Well, with the credits and everything, okay? For yours, it all depends on how you set that up. If you associate it to a personal Google account, then you use that, right? But I went ahead and created one separate just for this. So I'm working on issue tracker. So here you can go up here. I'm not going to go through a lot here. Here's your different projects that you have. So I have issue tracker, like a test project. Okay. So I'm going to actually go ahead just for the heck of it here and create a new project so I can deploy this again. I'm just going to deploy this again. It's already deployed out here. Okay. But I'm just going to create a new project because this is what you're going to want to do. You're probably by default, you're going to have something in here. Unless you've done other things in Google Cloud, you know, you could possibly, you have a bunch of projects. But if not, you're probably by default they give you like my first project or something. You know, this one's Crypto Moon. But go ahead and create a new project. And obviously you can call this whatever you want. But I would do something that's relevant to, so just for consistency's sakes, you have. So you only can do so many projects. So as far as these credits, they're not it's not unlimited here. I think I think I have like double of what you guys would have. But don't go too crazy out on the Google Cloud stuff. I don't want you to run out of the credits during the course. But you should be fine unless you're really doing a bunch of stuff. So all you need to go ahead and do is create your project name, kind of like I have here, and click create. And this is going to take a little bit for this project to create. So I will actually, okay, it's already done. So then I want to go ahead and select this project. Okay. And then as you can see, this is here. I want to copy this. This is the project ID. Okay. So I'm going to copy this. And let's see if our other stuff stopped running, is completed. Because I did that update. Let's see what's going on with that. Okay, good. So that looks like that update. If you just downloaded yours, then maybe if you just downloaded it, you shouldn't have to do an update. But Google, like I mentioned, actually in Monday's video, that there's Google Cloud I/O. So usually when they have the cloud event, they have a bunch of things that get updated around that. So usually a lot of Google stuff seems to change. The Chrome seems to change, a lot of different things. So that's probably a lot of this update is probably a reflection of changes they made to support stuff they've new stuff that's come out, part of their Google I/O event. Okay. So we're here just real quick, just make sure everything looks good. Looks like this was updated. Yep. Okay. So first thing we want to do, which is not a bad idea, is this command, gcloud auth list. And when you run this, it kind of shows you your active account. So this is going to be your account. Okay. This is going to be your account that's on your console, right? So if that is not what you expect it to be for some reason, okay, if that's not reflective of the Google account you expect it to be, okay, you can run, let me grab this one here. You can run this one, which is gcloud auth login. And it's actually going to pull up a screen and you choose your account, okay? And I'm just going back to the one I already had, but you have to still go through this and allow. Okay. You are now authenticated with gcloud CLI. Okay. So I just redid what it was already set, but I was just showing you that in case that's needed. Okay. All right. Now we're back here. Let me clear the screen so we have a little more room. So now we, well, one thing I think I forgot to do is I copied my project ID, but then I copied other stuff after that. I need to go grab that again. So I need to grab this project ID. So I'm going to copy this to clipboard again. And you then want to run this command, gcloud config set project, and then the project ID. So this is whatever you called it. If you called it different than mine, you'll need to replace this part with whatever you whatever project ID you have. Okay. And hit enter there. And that will set that up. Okay. And now from there, all we needed is deploy this. Now we can deploy this, but I want to kind of touch upon something because I made a mistake yesterday. The reason mine didn't deploy, and I'm a little confused why it even worked at all. But you know, we're using we have these different modules that we import, right? So for some reason, I did not have Express in here. And so for some reason, it actually failed on Google. I had to go through the log files and you know, I'll show you later on that, not today, but you know, you can go and diagnose those problems by looking in File Explorer in Google Cloud and to try to figure that out. Sometimes it's hard, but I did see where it said, you know, module missing. So, you know, make sure that, you know, in your, you know, your root directory, you have your node modules with all the ones that are relevant. That you, and like I said, you know, besides just the ones that you import, there's also dependencies that get imported. So we imported what? Debug was one, .env was another one, debug.env, and the other one was Express, right? Express, .env, and debug. So those three. So you might want to, you know, make sure that you got them in there. It needs to be that node modules part, and just recall that you might have node modules in two different. You're going to have them in two different places. You're going to have them in your front end, and you're going to have them on your back end. So you know, these are the ones that are very important here to get that to work. Okay, here most of this stuff is just Vite stuff. I think the only thing is, and you don't need this, but you may use Bootstrap in the future. That was something separate I did, but you should be fine on your front end node modules, but your back end node modules, which is in your root directory here, you know, you need to, if for some reason you're not sure, whatever, you can do npm install. Most of the time it's not going to work, okay, but you know, it's up to date, you know, everything's good. But npm install will just basically go read your package.json file and all your dependencies. And if there's anything to update, it'll update them. Okay? Yeah. All right. So that's that. Just want to point that out. Now the next thing is make sure, okay, so like I said before, you want to make sure that you have the dist directory built, your latest changes on your front end. Latest change you make on your front end, you want to make sure you do a build, npm run build, to build your dist directory with your latest changes before you deploy. Okay, and then obviously you have to be in the front end folder. So you'd have to CD to front end. Right now I'm in the final project folder, right? I'm in that root folder right now. So obviously to build that, you have to go to front end to build that, okay? But when you're deploying, you're gonna deploy from this final project directory, okay? So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to so we're going to run this deploy command. So I'm going to add something here just because I've already deployed with this. I don't think I'm almost sure it does not matter, but I'm just going to change the name of mine. You can just, and you can call this whatever. This is a made up name that you create yourself, okay? This is one that you create yourself. And I'm sure that this would be fine leaving it like it is. But I don't want to go all this time and it not work, and I'm almost sure that I wouldn't need to change that. So, but like I said, you can call this whatever you want here, okay? It's just a name, and I'll show you that here in a minute, though, where that comes to play. But I'm going to leave mine there. So hit run deploy, So gcloud run deploy, and then you're going to give this a name. It already knows your project ID because you already set that, right? It already knows your authorization, which is your account, your Google account that's already set up, right? And now just go ahead and hit enter here. And then the first thing it's going to ask you is your source code location. So it's possible to actually run this command from a different directory, but then you're going to have to tell it where you're at. It's just easier to run it from where your code is. And in this case, we're just running it. This is where our code is, our final project. So we can just hit the enter key here, okay? Do you want to enable these APIs? Yes, you're going to have to enable these APIs for it to work, okay? And then you go ahead and make sure you capital Y here. So capital Y, hit enter. And I'll pause this for a minute. I didn't have to pause it very long. Okay, and then the next thing is going to say what region, where do you want this deployed at, okay? Now you can choose any of these, right? Obviously something, usually something as far as speed, the closer it is to you, the better off you're going to be. So here I'm going to choose Central, US Central, which is us, where we're at. And so I'm going to put 34 here and hit enter. Okay, this will be created. So what this does is actually creates a container, okay? What's called a Docker container. You don't have to worry about that right now, but we're just going to go ahead and do a Y on that, for yes, hit the enter key. Allow unauthenticated invocations, yes. So that's just, you don't have to be authenticated to use it, right? You don't have to be authenticated to use it. And this is going to run for quite a while. It takes a while. So one thing I just going to mention is, and I mentioned this in the day 6 video, is we're using what's called Cloud Run on Google, and Cloud Run is what's called a serverless environment. And what that kind of means is, a lot of applications, especially traditionally in the past, and still to this day, but that was really traditionally in the past, it was the only way. If you had a website, it had to be on a server, and that server was always running, right? The server was always running, looking, waiting for a request to come through. So there's kind of resources that are always being used, right? Being used even if it wasn't serving up anything, and especially for like some small little website somewhere, some personal or some small company that hardly anyone ever goes to. It's constantly running 24 hours a day, right? One thing that's great about serverless is like on demand, whereas you're only charged is when it's actually doing something, right? The one thing, it's kind of a little bit of a downside is like, let's say once you hit it for the first time, it takes a little longer. Once it's loaded, it's very fast. But then if it sits dormant for a while and you don't touch it, the first time, it's going to take a little bit to kind of get loaded. That's just kind of how that works, right? So that, just one small little downside there. From a cost perspective, serverless can be a lot more cost effective than having a regular server running all the time. You can deploy things in a regular server environment in Google Cloud, but the serverless stuff is very handy, very simple, and just a good way, a good way to do things for depending on your kind of your needs. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pause and then let this run until it completes. And I'll show you the app live, and hopefully everything will work for you as well. Okay, looks like it's done here, and you can see at the end here, it's got a service URL. So you can either, control click this, click open, and so there is your app running on Google Cloud. As you can see in the URL, that's where that 2025 comes in. Okay. Also, just for your own for your own information here. Let's see, we don't want to go to that one. I'll just click this. So we come in here, here's our, that's the wrong account. A lot of things are wrong with that. I need to, bad thing about having multiple accounts. So here I'm on Issue Tracker 2025 is what I call this thing, right? The service is just a different name, and that's part of URL, right? If I come in here, I could type in Cloud Run here just to show you. And then, so here's our issue tracker. So if you ever forget the URL or whatever, because you know it's you know got some extra numbers and stuff like that, you can always come in here and you know make sure that you've got the right project highlighted. If you have multiple, right? Make sure you have the right one highlighted, and then you can do like I said, Cloud Run, and then it's going to come in here, and then here's your service, and you can click on this. And it'll show you the URL, so that you can just click that to go to that again, okay? It will show you when, you know, you start hitting it and stuff, you'll see different things on here as well, okay? One thing, since I am here, just wanted to mention is when you, earlier on, I kind of didn't mention this before, when you come in here, make sure that you have your billing account set. So for your app, there's a billing account, and so the billing account needs to be for the credits. It might be by default, you might be good, but just to let you know, billing account for education, okay? So you need to make sure that that's set. And that's per project too, it's per project. So I guess I didn't have to do it when I created a new project, so by default, you'll probably be fine, and it'll probably be this. You might not have to do anything at all, but just wanted to point that out. So there you go. You've got your, let's make sure this works real quick. So, yep, there's that. Each user works. Looks good. Okay. So just kind of wanted to, you know, go through that a little again. Hope that helped you out a little bit. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I will talk to you later.